Hi, I'm Daniel Myers, Developer Relations here at Snowflake, and this is another episode of Behind the Data Cloud. Welcome to Behind the Data Cloud. I'm Daniel Myers, your host today with Developer Relations here at Snowflake. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing Richie, part of the Sherwin-Williams Global Data Engineering Management. Richie, how are you?
Good, Dan. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. So I wanted to kick this off and for everybody here viewing, and just to learn a little bit, first off, just about you, your background, and in the data space.
Sure. Thanks. Well, it's nice to be here, and it seems like a fun platform. So thanks for having me today. So how I ended up at Snowflake with Snowflake all the way. So I started consulting. Before I started consulting, I was with Oracle as a product developer way back in 2008. And from there, I was in consulting in the ETL and ERP space, mostly doing integrations. And then I joined my current organization where I came in as a senior data integration specialist. We essentially, what we did was we traveled all over Latin America for about 5 years. And after an acquisition, we brought that localized data over into corporate data centers over here. So we wrote that entire ETL pipeline stacks using some of the Oracle middleware platforms and Oracle's Fusion integration platforms. And from there, as we basically, hopped around from one country to the other, but, based out of Cleveland here. And we ensure that those integrations are kept 24/7 and those data loads are running consistently so corporate can get a clearer understanding of what was going on at a ground level. So I've done that stint for a while, and then I got into the whole data and analytics space 5 years later. And I've been in this space for closer to 5 years now. And initially, I started managing a small data warehouse team, and we grew pretty big over the last few years. And right now, we are pretty sizable to about 20 some, developers, data engineers, and we are spread all across the globe. The organization that I work for, we sell, we are the largest paint manufacturing company, and we sell the most amount of paint. So I'm sure it's a household name. So what that means is we are in about 120 countries, and which means we have operations for BI, data, and analytics in most of those countries. So we have regionalized our operations for Latin America or Mexico City and UK for servicing our EMEA customers' needs. And then for APAC, we have a development center in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and here in the US, Cleveland and Minneapolis. So we have developers in all these 5 locations. So it is truly a global data engineering team, which I manage here in Cleveland. So how I ended up at Snowflake, it's been a long story. We've been with talks with Snowflake for about 3 years. It's about a year and a half since we converted to be a Snowflake enterprise customer.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about that journey, that 3-year journey. How did you end up choosing Snowflake, and what was your methodology in making that decision?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And it was, so let's say Snowflake was initially introduced by your service, sales engineer, one of the sales engineers at Snowflake. And it sounded great because the ability to, back then, right, the ability to differentiate compute and storage as separate entities and then be charged accordingly and then be able to scale up both independently was still new as a concept. And, you could have done something a little bit similar in Redshift, but it was really in the Amazon AWS suite of products. So, and Snowflake was relatively new to the market too. So there was a lot of questions around like, hey, is it going to scale for an enterprise, as big as our organization? So from that, so the problems were we service, my team services about 11,000 users internally within the company who consume their BI data and analytics needs from our data centers and from our uh, what do you call commodity hardware, which where our Oracle databases are today. And as we want to scale that, as we are adding more users with individual acquisitions that are happening, we basically are not able to scale that quickly. And we spent about in 2018, I believe, just 2018, we spent over 3,000 hours just performance tuning in multiple teams across. So that wasn't really a sustainable future for us. So we started looking at what are the other options and what can cloud offer. So the three immediate, like industry wide, the three options that you basically had then and even right now is Redshift from AWS, Google BigQuery, and the outlier, the brand new Snowflake that came into the picture. So the evaluation came to that, but we vetted a lot more other options to the last three as these three options. And a lot of that work around how we ended up Snowflake was basically running similar concepts, similar loads versus the other two options as well, which is BigQuery and AWS. And there are, there are a lot of the functionalities are complementary, but again, it's an offering within their giant suite of products as a platform. So you'll get sucked into that ecosystem. The fact that Snowflake is platform agnostic and you can plug and play with Azure and with AWS storage and multiple other apps, it kind of was really one of the big defining factor besides the power of its compute resources itself. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it definitely does. So tell me a little bit more about, some of the, key decision points, right? Of like this, of the reason why Snowflake, right? What was a key critical aspect that made you move to Snowflake?
I think one of the key was, when we did the auto scale functionality in AWS Redshift back then, it did take time. You need to bring services down, you need to bring services back up, and it wasn't like how simple it was with Snowflake. I mean, you basically queries are still running. So we did this in a real practical use case with a couple of the SEs from Snowflake together in the conference room. It was like we had a workload running, and then we scaled up and we scaled down with really nothing getting killed. So that was huge. And then also the ANSI SQL, there is no infrastructure component for your maintenance, which means my team doesn't need to heavily depend on DBAs for a lot of the administration. So we spend way too much time with patching, maintenance activities, critical updates that come from our current like legacy platform. Well, I wouldn't say legacy, but are still traditional data storages that we have, right? Everyone knows Oracle would be one of the big ones right there. And the amount of admin time we spend is ridiculously large. And then the fact that is not going to be a thing, and ANSI SQL supported, and you can dump in a lot of data. And I think the cool thing was with Snowpipe, we've done a lot of concepts where we aligned up multiple multi-GB files, and we started off a small cluster with 8 parallel tiers, and it basically sucks it all in. But how are you going to get those files ready and prepared is where the big $1 million question is, and it's a whole industry, and I can talk about that part for an hour. But I think a lot of it wasn't like one decision; it was a multiple factors. And actually, I did write, because I've been asked this question so many times. So I did put a Medium article out there comparing my evaluation and then the number of customers that these three products had back then. So if you Google Richie Bachala, Snowflake versus Redshift versus BigQuery, you'll probably find that blog that I wrote like a year and a half or something ago.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, your, some of the interesting projects that you're working on. I know you mentioned to me before, you have a COVID use case that you've been looking at.
Yeah, so it's actually not a use case. It's actually a good project. I mean, with the Snowflake's capability of data sharing, it's huge, right? The data shared house. So there are some use cases we looked at data shared house capabilities, but we never really got to really use it until COVID happened. I mean, unfortunate circumstances, but regardless, we were able to use it for that. So I think there is this company called Star Schema. So, as every day when, your rise in numbers of COVID cases is there's a new CSV file that gets published by the John Hopkins hospitals, and for globally, for all the countries, and every country sends them the numbers, and then they have a new file, a new CSV file with the updated numbers that get published, and it's published on their GitHub repository. So this company called Star Schema, all they did is they took that file, put it in the Snowflake database, and made the Snowflake database available public. So all you need to do is go to their website, put in your email address, and they'll give you an access to have that publicly available for your queryable database purposes. So I think that was kind of cool. So this was way back, and then we were just looking into getting that data from the flat file, and then generating that ETL purpose, and then have that data available in Snowflake for maybe some of our users to use it out of Tableau or build some Tableau dashboards out of it. So yeah, that was kind of cool. I thought, because it's a great use case if you think about it. There's a lot of public data like that available right there. So you can, the census data that's available. There's a lot of weather data that's available as flat files, so that you would go to those websites and get them as flat and XML files. Now you don't have to do that. So a lot of those services within the data share house, within the data marketplace in Snowflake, you can go and subscribe for it as basically a database. You basically query straight up, and it's live data. So the moment you generate these files, they're already out of sync. They're already out of date. So when you are getting true live values, it's a great use case. I think there's a lot of potential for it, and it is only the beginning. And I know it's been around for like 9 months or something, but this feature I think has a huge potential, and I think it's going to be one of the key features why data cloud is going to be a thing, right? A big thing in the future. So yeah, that's
One of my favorite parts of Snowflake is the data sharing capability, right? I mean, the ability to have zero copy clone is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a developer myself, I've always thought of, hey, if I am going to be sharing data with somebody else, or somebody else sharing data with me, I do that
Right.
through like a REST API or something.
Right.
Now this is kind of a mind shift a little bit, right? It's like you can directly share the underlying data through a mechanism like this. And so it's I agree, hugely powerful. And I think we've just hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of kind of where it's going to go. So that's awesome. That's awesome. And so, I want to, ask you also kind of, how can the community members, viewers here, connect with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I definitely going to talk about the community.snowflake.com and developers.snowflake.com as the community is evolving. I think that's a great way to reach out to me. I'm on both of them. And besides that, I would say Twitter, LinkedIn, and Medium are other 3 social media avenues that you can reach out to me. It's the same, my first name, last name. The handle is the same, Richie Bachala, in all the platforms. So yeah, that would be a good way to reach out to me if any of these topics are of interest to anyone.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining today. It's been a great conversation. And for everybody there, I'm Daniel Myers, host here of Behind the Data Cloud. I'll see you next time.